The next verse, verse 306, as well as the previous verse and the next few verses, is about the false imagination. The false imagination is how we believe things to be. Now, you may have some beliefs. You may have some religious beliefs. Perhaps you believe in a prophet or in a deity. Or perhaps you believe in the truth of science. Or perhaps you don't particularly subscribe to any belief at all. But whatever the case, whatever you believe or don't believe, there's one thing we all have in common, and that is we operate according to the false imagination. I talk about belief, but it's actually deeper than that. It's about assumptions, about our basic assumptions as to how things are. And if you're familiar with some of my videos, then you'll know what I'm going to say next. About the most fundamental of assumptions. Whatever you believe or don't believe, you assume that there's an individual here experiencing an external world out there. Even teachers who have a great degree of insight, teachers that have insight into non-duality, and there are many of them around these days, they don't seem to question this assumption. They don't seem to go into the wisdom texts like the Lankavatara Sutra, which do question this assumption. This assumption that there's an individual here experiencing an external world out there. And it might seem quite ridiculous to question this assumption. What's the point of questioning this assumption? Well, if you want to get to the truth, then all assumptions must be questioned. And as far as benefits of questioning this assumption go, I've generally avoided this question in the past, but there is one advantage, and that is, and it's a rather incredible advantage, and that is, it gives you some authority over your moods, over your fetishes and addictions, over your mind. So that might be a good justification for it. So the false imagination is about how we assume things to be. And these teachings are telling us that it's not like this. There is not an individual here experiencing an external world out there. This belief, this falsely imagined assumption, is at the heart of all our suffering. And it isn't a question of just stating this as another belief. It's something we have to look into for ourselves. We have to look into the nature of our own consciousness, the nature of our own awareness, the nature of our attention. And this might seem quite a tall order. How can we do this? Well, there's one phenomenon which is a golden opportunity to see how consciousness works. And that's the phenomenon of dreaming. It's actually an extraordinary phenomenon, and yet we dismiss it. If we do look into it, it might be from a psychological point of view, and then we'll be told that all the elements of our dream are aspects of our own psychology, and that's fine from a psychological point of view. But from a spiritual point of view, it misses the point to a stupefying degree. Imagine you're in a dream right now. Imagine this is a dream. What would be different? Probably nothing much. The laws of physics might be slightly different, no, but that's not going to bother you. The laws of physics are quite peculiar anyway. We've just got used to a certain set of peculiarities. In the dream, we have a different set of peculiarities which become normal, and everything can be explained in its own way. But let's not worry too much about that. The main factors of the dream are the same factors as they are in our waking state. As an individual here, experiencing a world out there. And not just that, it's real. When you're in a dream, it's real, very real. This is what consciousness does. This is the trick it plays on itself. Whatever consciousness experiences, it has this element of reality. Even if you know it's a dream, even if you're a lucid dreamer, you're still caught up in it. You just surf the dream differently. You navigate it differently. But it's still there. The dream is still very, very real, even if you know it's a dream. So this is the extraordinary thing, and this is why it seems strange to question our basic assumptions, because consciousness is not just telling us, but intuiting on a fundamental level that what it's experiencing is real. So I told you to imagine that this is a dream right now. How do you know it's not? Consciousness behaves exactly the same way. We make a distinction between waking and dreaming, but it's still consciousness doing its thing. Consciousness is constantly telling us, in its discrimination mode, what is real and what is not real. I will say, my dream was not real. I remembered that wrongly. That's just a story. This is what's real. My prophet is what is real. My deity is what is real. Science is what is real. So we're always discriminating what is real and what is not real. To bolster the reality of our false imagination. So this is the attitude. That if we cannot see it for ourselves, we can at least consider the fact that all of this is no different from a dream. And this is the practice of the enlightenment practitioner, to keep remembering this and realizing it. And that's the purpose of these verses. Let's look at verse 306. If the relativity aspect of existence is, while the imagination is not, this means that there is a being apart from being, and that a being is born of a non-being. This seems a bit convoluted, doesn't it? But it's actually stressing what I've just been saying. Let's look at this. The relativity aspect of existence. Well, this is the dream. This is the dream. The dream sees things in terms of itself. It's immersed in its own story. So there's a story that there's a person here who's got his parents. His parents have got his parents. I'm in a house which has been constructed from bricks and other materials taken from the earth or manufactured. And the earth itself, it's got its history. It revolves around the sun. It's part of the Milky Way galaxy and of the universe, which exploded into existence so many billion years ago, and so on. And I've got relationships. There's other people who are walking around that seem to have lives of their own, and all getting on with their own particular dramas. So this is the story. This is the relativity aspect of existence. So the relativity aspect of existence is the dream, while the imagination is not. Now the dream is dependent on the false imagination. It's dependent on the dreamer. Now, the ordinary assumption is we assume that this reality out there is independent, that we are individuals somehow subordinate to this reality out there. Like it's like an external stage where we strut our stuff for a while. So the assumption here is, this hypothesis is, if that is real, if that is what is more real than the individual here, this means that there is a being apart from being. Well, this is like saying that the characters in my dream have got an independent existence. Who are these characters in my dream? I don't have any control over them. It's my dream. I don't have any control over them. They can do what they like. They can even give me quite a hard time, even though it's my dream. But are they independent? Are they independent entities, independent of me? Well, it'd be quite ridiculous to say so, because it's my dream. So this is it. This is it. So what am I saying here? Are we veering into solipsism? That you and everybody else that's walking around here are characters in my dream? Well, I too am a character in my dream. I mean, who am I? Who am I? I might have a tail. I might even be a woman in my dream. I might be some other creature. I might be invisible. So who am I? I too am a character in, perhaps it's best to say, the dream rather than my dream. Because in what way is it my dream? I have as much control over what's going on in my dream as I have in ordinary life. Perhaps even less control in my dream. So in what way is it my dream? It's simply dreaming. This is what's going on. A great dreaming. And the false imagination claims the dream for its own. So this is being apart from being, and that a being is born of a non-being. A being is born of a non-being. Well, like I said, The characters in my dream, they've got friends, they've got parents. So, were they born of their parents? Were the characters in my dream born of their parents? Of course not. They sprung into existence in the instant of the dream. And how does this apply to our so-called waking reality right here? Don't we have parents? Well, there are individuals walking around that we have got connections with. We've got memories associated with them, certain understanding. But yes, I mean, even from the scientific point of view, everything is being created from instant to instant. All our senses give us is electrical signals. Our whole experience through the senses is electrical signals, which apparently are transformed by some incredible mechanism in the brain into the totality of our physical experience. But we don't need to take science's word from it. We look into it and we see it for ourselves. Just as in the dream, all history is created in the moment. This is how consciousness works. This is what consciousness does. It not only creates an individual here, an external world out there, and gives a sense of reality, it creates memories in that instant too. It creates history in the instant. What an extraordinary thing. This is what we come back to as enlightenment practitioners. We come back to consciousness. Now let's not get caught up in consciousness as an idea. Consciousness is awareness. Awareness is what the attention does. The attention is aware. So, your attention is operating right now. This is your awareness. Focus on the attention. Focus on the awareness. It's the same thing. It's an extraordinary thing. It's creating everything. The whole universe. Our whole history. Our whole backstory. In this instant. This is the false imagination. It's wonderful. Let's step back from it. It's a bit like getting caught up in the surf, the waves as they splash on the shore. This is what interests us. This is what catches our eye. This is what we get caught up in. But I invite you to come back to the depths. Never mind that surface froth. That surface froth which enchants us, which hypnotizes us. Come back to the depths. The depths of your own awareness.